All right. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
I'm living a beautiful life. I'm making a beautiful life. I'm changing, rearranging. I see a beautiful day. It's coming my way. It's a beautiful day.
To have none other than our latest author to grace the AVL studio, Jocelyn Desiree. And I tell you, I'm so excited to have you on, Miss Desiree. I'm so
Thank
excited for them to
you.
about this literary masterpiece that you come out. So I am your host, JQ Lee. And I tell you, you are in for a treat tonight. Miss Jocelyn is ready. She's been excited. We've been excited. And so we're just going to jump right into it. What I have been doing of recent is actually interviewing authors, but really getting a chance to find out the story behind the story. There is often a very triumphant story that is happening in the life of that author before they pen. And so I want you to be able to share with our beautiful viewing audience a little bit about your journey. Have you always wanted to be an author?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit. It actually came about because it was just something that God was speaking through my life's journey and
Mm-hmm.
coming out of it. You learn that a lot of people have a process and we have things that we go through that may be traumatic or cause wounds and scars, but you never really want to talk about it. So it came about because God was saying, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And I was kind of like, okay, God, write a book about what? And instantaneously, God was like, your journey to wholeness. And going back and talking about my past experiences and how I got through and how I got to a place of healing. That's just how it happened.
And that's interesting because it is so true. A lot of times people can go through very painful occurrences and they begin to shy away from sharing that testimony. And we know that the word of God tells us that we overcome by the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony. And
Hmm.
it's refreshing to hear you um, talk about the reasoning behind Journey to Wellness and being able to put that on paper. Talk a little bit about what were some of the challenges that came across you actually writing the book.
My biggest challenge was starting it, believe it or not. It's easy to say, okay, God, I'm going to do what you would have for me to do. And he gave me the outline, gave me what I needed to talk about. But my fear was, how do I start it? Because it was so much. Where do I begin? And God was like, at the beginning. So then once I was able to start it, my prayer was, God, don't let me start this and not finish it. I want to be able to see it through, because if anybody has written about things of their past and things that they've gone through, it's hard. It's really hard. It's like reliving it all over again. And
Right.
I was just, at some moments I would get stuck, or at some moments I was like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I had to constantly, just consistently say before God and say, Lord, just please help me finish it. Please just help me finish it. Help me make it to the end until I finished it.
And
Probably my
those
biggest hurdle.
those are some of the challenges I know that people have when they are writing books. Sometimes they might get the writer's block, or just those challenges of life and other responsibilities that you have. Talk a little bit about, did you have accountability partners? Did you have people who knew that you were writing the book?
So my parents are my pastors, they're my leaders, They're probably the only people that knew that I was going on this new journey of writing a book. When the Lord gave it to me and told me what to write about, I sat down with them. I said, okay, God told me to write a book, so I'm going to write a book. They said, okay, good. So I know that they were praying with me and praying for me. And in moments that I would get stuck, they were praying with me and they were praying for me. And it was just, okay, come on, keep writing. But my biggest push was probably the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost. I would have moments literally where I couldn't do anything else. If I tried to do something else, I couldn't do anything else because the Lord was like, no, you need to sit down and write and just write. And when I would sit down, I would write and I couldn't stop writing. I couldn't stop writing until the Lord let me go and he released me. So I know that this was an assignment that I was supposed to complete.
Mm. And it's nothing like getting in that still place and having that relationship with him to know, what your next move should be, the level of consistency and obedience that comes with following him. And I love the fact that you said, your parents were your accountability partners, in them, then them being a safe place for you to be able to share what it is that God wanted you to release. Talk a little bit, because you made mention that some days, were more challenging than others, even in penning it, and having to relive that. Talk a little bit about what were some of the content that you felt that he wanted you to release within the book.
So for those that may not know, Journey to Wholeness is about my experience from being married to being divorced and adjusting after divorce. So, in order for people to really understand how I got from one place to the next, I had to start from the beginning. So, reliving certain instances and certain circumstances. And my editor, where I thought I was going to like shy over certain things just to kind of give a glimpse or an idea of the setting of the certain circumstances that happened, she was, no, get deeper. No, give me some details on that. No, no, give me examples. Give me a timeline. It was really digging into some of the traumatic details of the fights and the arguments and the day I decided to leave, the day I decided to get a divorce, or um, the moments that my children um, were just shifted mentally or they shifted emotionally, and I saw it, and having to relive those moments was times where I was writing and I had tears in my eyes, or times I was writing and I said, okay, I have to step away for a moment, because all of those feelings and those emotions just like it floods you instantly. And I had to like
Mm-hmm.
sit and say, okay, this is the past, this has already happened, but to talk about it and to relive it and to put it out there was a huge step. And it was
Mm-hmm.
almost like sitting and saying, do I really want people to know this? Like, but it was a moment of transparency and a bit more healing for me that needed to happen. So I'm glad I was able to overcome those moments, but it was difficult. It was really difficult.
And even with talking, I know you made mention of your children. Did they know that you were going to write a book?
So while I was writing it, no, they didn't know. I didn't tell them really until I kind of got to publishing and things were
Mm-hmm.
copyrighted, was when I kind of released it to them in a sense. My kids talk a lot. So until God was ready for it to be released, it was like, I can't tell you right now. So I had to kind of keep the secret for a little bit. But when it came out,
Uh,
they, showed that they were really proud of me. Like, oh, my mommy wrote a book. And they're like begging me to this day, mommy, can we read it? And I'm like, no. So, yeah, yeah.
so that was a transition. That was a
It,
transition. I hear you. I hear you. So, a lot of times when people hear that there's a book pertaining to divorce. They think of it sometimes as, oh, this is going to be, disparaging to the person that they're divorcing, or this is going to be just painting them in a certain way. In this piece, in your literary piece, were you able to look at you and have an introspective look at yourself as well as you were transitioning in the journey?
Absolutely. The way God gave it to me and instructed me to release it was a lot of people that go through divorce think that it's about like pointing the finger. And my intent and the perspective that I wanted to give was not dragging my ex through the mud. In my book, if anybody has read it, I didn't name any names. I didn't, put out there that, oh my God, he's a horrible person. I didn't do any of that because that wasn't the focal point. That wasn't the point. The point, it was about how it affected me, how I got through the decisions I had to make, the adjustments I had to make. It was showing the things that I learned, how this affected me, how I had to grow, what I needed to learn, the steps I had to take, and just putting it from a perspective of, as much as when you go through bad breakups, we tend to, especially as women, oh, look what you did to me. Oh my gosh, you ruined my life and XYZ, and not realizing that the person on the other side had to go through it too. And it was really showing that perspective that not only was I grieving the death of a relationship, but he grieved it too. And he went through it in his way, and I went through it in my way. My children went through it in their own way. So just giving a perspective on all sides of saying, this is what this looks like, but this is
Yeah.
also where we can grow. This is also where we can learn. This is also, the steps that we can take so that we can move forward and get to a place of peace.
And I think that's so good, Jocelyn, because people don't really fully talk about that as much as they should in reference to, they talk about divorce like a death. And for each person, who, even down to family members on both sides, when you've walked as family and then that relationship ends, there are different layers to the level of grief, and it can be different for every person. One person can start off
Right.
with anger, one person can start off with despair. And I want to park for a moment where the children are concerned, because I think sometimes, adults look at divorce as just, well, he and I didn't get along, and so we're splitting. But the impact that it actually can have on the children. What was that journey like for them?
Um, if I be honest and transparent, my children are still going through a journey of adjusting and healing. But in the beginning, because my children were
Mm-hmm.
very young, my oldest was 5, my youngest was 3. My oldest probably understood it the most. They were exposed to probably
Mm-hmm.
more than what they should have been exposed to, and she understood it. My youngest didn't so much understand it, but she felt it. So it came out a lot
Mm-hmm.
in her behavior and her actions. So
Mm-hmm.
my youngest would have moments where if she was with me, she missed her dad, or she didn't really understand why everybody wasn't together the way we used to be together. Why aren't we in the same house when we used to be in the same house? I don't understand this. So she would have moments of like breakdown, and it took some sitting down and let me explain it to you on a level that you're going to understand that there's a change that's happening, but mommy still loves you and daddy still loves you, but things are going to look different now.
Yeah.
My oldest was a little bit more complex. She really made a huge shift, and it wasn't so much in her behavior, but mentally and emotionally, because she loved for everybody to be together. Let's everybody do this together. Let's celebrate birthdays together. And let's why can't we do this with everybody? And getting her to really understand life is not like this anymore. And when she saw us grieving in the way that we were grieving, and sometimes it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all.
Mhm.
And she
Mhm.
hated it. Like it really hurt her. It hurt her so much. And there were times where I felt mommy guilt. Like I really went through mommy guilt because I felt like, why did I do this to them? I threw this
Mm.
on them and I'm taking them through this traumatic experience and they don't deserve this. But the counseling help we did counseling together for them to be able to express how they were feeling. So it was if mommy does something that you don't understand or it bothers you or it hurts your feelings when I say no, we can't do this or no, things aren't going to be like that. Let's talk about it because I want you to understand why things are like this because I had to understand it affected them too.
Right. Right. And that, I think that sometimes that can be a missing component, especially when um, someone is still dealing with the grief and the level of emotion that divorce had on them. So I love the fact that you really took into consideration the impact it would have on them, and are going through that counseling together as a family, because it helps them. Sometimes we've been taught, um, as adults sometimes, that you keep everything away from the children. You present a certain picture, but does that really prepare them for life? Should we tell them everything? No. But should we allow them to see us sometimes in our different emotional states? I think that that can be helpful to a child, because it teaches them how to be able to process and to overcome. Because how do you get to
Right,
wholeness without going through the stages of everything emotionally that gets you to that place of wholeness? So I want to
right,
go in to talk about what was intriguing to me is your title, because we're living in a time where people are operating from a fragmented place. They're operating from even down to platforms, making money off of just the angry, as they, I hate that term, but the angry black woman, or just bitterness, or just somebody did you wrong, so you do this. And people are creating platforms off of that, and that is really speaking of that broken place in people. But when you can get to a place of wholeness, I think that is just the wealthiest place that anybody can be, because it's not you depending on anyone to get you there. It is understanding what God Himself has to do to get you there. Talk to us a little bit in reference to your actual title and how you came up with it.
well, the title came from God. But it made a lot of sense to me because it took me years to do my work. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It wasn't like I got divorced in October and oh my God, my New Year's resolution was I'm gonna be whole. It was not that simple at all.
Right.
There were some hard days. There were some rough days. It was some days I beat myself up. It was a lot of tears I cried. It was a lot of conversations that I had to have with God, with my counselor, with my parents, with my children. There was some ups and downs and some uphill battles, even with their father. It was a lot of work that I had to do. There was a lot of healing that I had to do because I had to focus more on me. And when I stepped back to see where I was when it started, up until the place that I was at when God said, write a book, I realized how much progress I had made. I realized that I can actually talk about this and not get upset. I can talk about it and not cry. I can be in the presence of my children's father and it not move me and him not move me, even if we're at odds. Like I had done enough work in me to say, Jocelyn, you're okay. I have made the steps to adjust, to grow, to learn from my own faults and my own mistakes. And when I got to a place where I was able to admit that you did this wrong and you were out of the will of God in this, and now this is where you need to shift and change. And I took the steps to move towards that. And I realized that I got back to me and who I originally am and who God was calling me to be. I said, okay, God, I understand now why it's my journey to wholeness, because it was definitely a process.
And that is, thank you so much for your transparency. I'm loving this interview because a lot of times people share the ending, right? They share, the success story and the
Hmm.
party. Even getting to that party, you have a lot of curves and turns and twists and as a certified event planner, I say, people walk into a beautiful room, but they have no earthly idea the behind the scenes for
Right.
putting
What it
that.
took to make it happen. Right.
Exactly. And as I'm maturing the things of God, I really understand that every stage is important. I think that challenges in life help us to appreciate the more the blessings of God and His hand being over our lives, the favor over our lives. I think that we can be a people that if we don't have certain things and challenges that happen that buffer us and keep us humble, we could go left in reference to the humility needed to be able to walk into this journey of wholeness and fulfillment.
Agree.
And so I want to, as we begin to wrap up, I want you to talk to a young lady who may be at that beginning stage that you were prior to the books. Even down to, it's not just about someone becoming an author, but really understanding um, the therapeutic and the cathartic means that putting it in writing can be for an individual. So talk a little bit about to our beautiful viewing audience, for those who may be experiencing a lot of challenges in their lives right now, um, how important it is, you think, in reference to penning it, whether they ever actually write a book or not.
So I would say when I first was going through a divorce, I decided to go to counseling. And the first bit of advice she gave me was, Jocelyn, write it down. Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, because I was losing a lot of sleep and I was always in my head about things and I was carrying a lot of different emotions. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, Jocelyn, write it down. So to anybody that may be experiencing, maybe if it's a bad breakup or an abusive situation that you're trying to get out of, or a divorce and it's just ugly, and you're going through this roller coaster ride of emotions,
Mm-hmm.
journal it, write it down. That was one of the best things. I had a book everywhere. I had a book at work. I had a book by my bed. I carried a book in my purse. I had a book everywhere because the advice is if you get it out of your head and get it on paper, it'll clear your thoughts. And what it did for me was when I got it out of my head, it gave me more room to hear God speak. So
Mm.
between doing that and taking time to, I needed an outlet. I had to exert my energy because if not, then my flesh was going to take over and the way I responded to certain situations. So I would do
Mm-hmm.
things like go sit at the beach and just still myself. And that was one of the biggest things. And it's even in my book where the Lord had to tell me, Jocelyn, just be still and be quiet. Just be still and be quiet. So I would go to the beach and I would be still and I would be quiet because I feel like the beach is one of those places that God created that man can't change. So I
Hmm.
would go to the beach and I would just allow myself to just release what needed to be released, knowing that it wasn't going to come back. And then another thing that I would do was I would walk. I would take walks. So on days that I was angry because we do get angry. We do get frustrated. We do get flustered. We do get overwhelmed because when certain things hit you and it blindsides you, it's easy to just react and respond. So instead of me just immediately reacting and responding, I would go outside and I would just walk. And people probably thought I was crazy because I would just walk up and down the street until I calmed down. I would walk and I would pray. I would walk and I would pray until the Lord brought me down enough so I can say, okay, God, how do you want me to respond? What do you want me
Mm,
to do? And He would give it to me. He would tell me what to say, or He would send me somebody that would tell me how I needed to respond or if I needed to respond at
at
all.
all.
And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that helped, that those three things helped me so much in just getting through my process. And there are times where even now where I tell people all the time, like my journey still continues, okay? Like, okay, yes, God got me through divorce and my healing, but
Mm-hmm.
my life is still going. So there are certain things I still revert back to. I still have a journal by my bed. I still have the journal at work, and I may not use it as consistently as I did before in going through this particular process, but there are still other processes that we go through. There are still other things that we're going to have to still face. And so, whatever outlet it is that you need to have that moment of release to increase your capacity for God to pour in what it is that you're supposed to learn from it, whatever it is that you're supposed to do in it, however you're supposed to respond to it, allow room to be made. So release the negativity, put it down on paper, even if you throw it away later, do whatever it is that you have to do to make room for God to pour into you, because it's always something that it is He needs for you to see in it, something that
Yeah.
you're supposed to learn from it so that you don't have to go back through it again. Because if you fail the test, it's going to come all the way back around and then you're going to have to figure it out. So those are my three biggest things.
And you know what? I think that's truly an awesome place to end, Jocelyn, because when you think about that was so powerful what you said, and so I want to echo it in reference to being able to clear all of that that's transpiring through writing it out so that you can actually hear from God, because we can have so much going on in our head, in our mind, and the emotions working and the flesh working, that if we just take the time to just stop to write, stop, walk outside, back and forth, not caring what neighbors say, our response can give him glory. And I think
Right.
ultimately, when we think about the life of the believer, like always tell people, like we go through very the same things that the world goes through. We're gonna
Mhm.
get fired. We're gonna lose loved ones. We're gonna have somebody curse us out, in traffic. All of these things are going to happen,
Mhm.
but our response is supposed to be different. And
Right.
so, because we cannot do all of that in our own strength, it causes us to put our whole weight on Him so that we do respond correctly. And
Right.
what I love about being around people who have those aha moments and they get it, you know, sometimes people will throw you a pity party for you to be able to stay over there longer than you're supposed to, when life happens. But I love to have those friends like, all right, JQ, that's enough. Okay, let's get back into where you're supposed to be, because at the end of the day, if we truly want our lives to give him glory, we are going to have to not just go through it, but grow through it. And that's
Yes.
how we will get to that place of wholeness. So, as we begin to close out, I just want to give you an opportunity to share with our beautiful viewing audience on how they can actually purchase your book, be a blessing to what you're doing, and to be able to stay in touch.
Okay. Well, first I want to thank you for the platform and for the opportunity to be able to come and share. I want to say you are absolutely my first interview, so I'm just really, really
Oh,
excited about it. But for anybody that is interested, in purchasing Journey to Wholeness. You can follow me on Instagram and on Facebook at All Things Jocelyn Desiree. And you can hit me up in my instant message, and I will sign a book and I will ship it off to you. I will give you all the details of what you need to do that. Or the book is also available on Amazon, and it is available on Barnes and Noble. You can go in and you can order. I am open to all reviews if you have read it. It is doing well. If you are going through anything, if you're struggling with letting go, if you're struggling with walking away, if you're struggling with moving on, I encourage you to please go in and get the book. Hit me up, and I promise I will send it to you. I will get it to you in no time flat.
Well, all right, you have heard from our author spotlight for this evening, Miss Jocelyn Desiree. So on social media, she is All Things Jocelyn Desiree. Make sure, beautiful viewing audience, that you follow her, you connect with her. We have to make sure that we are supporting our own. And so when believers have projects where, they're being transparent, in hopes that it will be a blessing to other people who may go through that, we definitely have to support. So I am so excited for you, Ms. Desiree. She was a little under the weather, but she still came on. And so that just speaks volumes. So we definitely pray
Thank you.
wellness over you. And
Thank
as we
you.
close out, as I said, the title of her book is truly what drew me in: Journey to Wholeness. And when you think about how weighty that topic is, that's what God wants for us. He doesn't want us to stay in the past and allow ourselves to be re-injured and re-injured and re-injured by everything that happens to us. He wants us to be able to, as I said, not just go through it, but grow through it. And so this is the blessing that we have as believers, that no matter how challenging it is, and it comes with its challenges, life can give you some uppercuts and some TKOs, but I'm so grateful that because we have the one who says he would never leave us nor forsake us, if we get knocked down, we're getting back up. And so without
Amen.
further ado, thank you all. I saw the people in the comments section. Thank you all for tuning in and supporting A Beautiful Life, and most importantly, our beautiful guests. So thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you.
I'm living a beautiful life. I'm making a beautiful life. I'm changing, rearranging. I see a beautiful day. It's coming my way. It's a beautiful day.